What's up, everybody? This is Supreme Decisions, and today on the Supreme Decisions Legal Minute podcast, we're going to get into something that I watched on HBO Max a few days ago, and I had an opportunity to watch that with my youngest son. But before we get into the actual podcast, I got to pay a couple bills, and we're going to start off with that burger spot number 3. It is at 7420A South Lake Parkway in Jonesboro, Georgia, 30236. Great food. I've eaten there often. One of the best places to eat in Atlanta, and your stomach will thank you. Stop in. You can create the burger that you want. They have this one burger that I actually love. It's called the Impossible Burger. Don't forget, order it. Tell them Supreme sent you, and again, your stomach will thank you. It's an A-rated restaurant and is voted best in Atlanta in 2021. Jacob's Well Unity Church of Christ Sunshine Community Outreach Dinner every third Sunday at 2 p.m. And that's at 241 Bradford Drive, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28208. And again, that's Jacob's Well Unity Church of Christ Sunshine Community Outreach Dinner every third Sunday at 2 p.m., 241 Bradford Drive, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28208. And last but not least, my favorite, El Paso, Texas. Get ready. Urban Gyros Mediterranean and Sweet District Dessert Lounge. Desserts made to order. Desserts with waffles, crepes, and ice cream. Good. It's at 1550 North Zaragoza Drive, Suite 201 and Suite 202, and that's El Paso, Texas, 79936. Urban Gyros is Mediterranean food with an urban twist, and it is delicious. My favorite is the butter chicken. Also, stop in and get your gyros. They have gyros, bowls, and loaded fries. You're going to have baklava. They've got it. You go get it. It's great. It is also well priced. Hashtag celebrate flavor. And it's your big ass taco. Made fresh daily and made to order. Urban Gyros Mediterranean and Sweet District Dessert Lounge at 1550 North Zaragoza Drive, Suite 201 and Suite 202, El Paso, Texas, 79936. Now that we got the bills out the way, this is something that actually caught my attention because, like I said, I was kind of surfing on HBO Max because most of you guys don't know, whenever I'm down in Georgia, it's generally family related because I don't get back to Georgia very often because I love Texas. And when I'm here, it's what it is for the most part. And I have a litany of injuries, since coming back. And while nursing the injury, anyway, I ran across a story, and most of you guys know I have kind of bias when it comes to, I guess, police officers and police interactions. Well, that's probably why this story kind of grabbed my attention because I had never heard of it prior to seeing it on HBO Max. Well, let me give you something because I'm a big proponent on proper police procedure. Most police officers have no clue of what proper procedures are because they're not trained on constitutional acts or constitutional procedures, which this is where the disconnect comes in the communities. Because you look at how they police affluent communities versus how they police disenfranchised communities. So whenever I see this, because I constantly say things like it is a war on the poor, because they take more care when they're dealing in an affluent community. But we also see instances where that care is not taken because the dynamics of the programming, which we're seeing every day and we're being told constantly by those on the outside with no idea how this thing actually works, what they can and can't do. And they're willing to listen to those that are on the outside that have no clue or context of what it is that can be done or how it can be done to be beneficial for them. So this is where I get in the killing of Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. Now, I actually thought this was going to be something like the movie The Hate U Give, because that was one of the ones where I actually found that I have a form of PTSD dealing with police officers. I also then look back on my life, because it's something that I've started doing, or I've done for a minute, once I read the book, A Purpose-Driven Life. And yes, those are shameless plugs, so go ahead and get that book. Those are great books. Even the movie itself is a great movie, because it depicts certain things that are going on that most people have no real clue about. And in this movie, the killing of Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., the police were dispatched to his location to perform a wellness check at 5 a.m. in the morning. Now, let me give you a little bit of a backstory, because I don't think just saying that offers any context on what it is that went on or should have gone on. I actually don't even think most people understand the context of any of these things. Well, I actually wrote down that Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. was a 70-year-old former Marine. The thing that I wrote down was actually incorrect. He was 68 at the time of his murder. And I do mean the way I just said it. He was 68. He was a former Marine. Now, this incident happened November 19th, 2011 in White Plains, New York. Now, many people have kind of, I guess predisposed notions of who it is I am when it comes to policing, and my feelings on actual government. Here's the issue. Most of them have never sat down with me to have a conversation about what it is or how I actually feel. They take snippets of what I say and deduce their own understanding of what they believe. And the problem is, when you think, feel, and believe, and you're not getting it from the source, you are a dumbass. But at the same time, I am critical of those that are performing a service, because growing up, one of my favorite statements or sermons or verses was, "The greatest among you shall be a servant to all." Now, when you are a police officer, you're in service to the public. When you're acting outside of that public or that service, to me, there's nothing about you that's great, because you made an oath to God. You swore to God that you were going to perform a service for the public, yet you're choosing not to perform that service. So when you're making these conscious choices, whether it's done through the acts of training or whether it's done through the acts of you're just immoral as fuck, these are things that I have issue with. And even in the context of performing police duties, I often look at what's written in departments. I often have issue what's written in departments' policies. Say that one more time, because I want you to understand what I'm getting ready to say, because there are going to be a lot of things I say that actually sound like opinion. There's going to be a lot of things that I say that sound like opinion. But I have issue with what is done through department policy and police officers' inability to follow that policy. I spoke about the George Floyd police reform bill and how it had nothing to do with addressing the things in which people have an issue with. Yet, they're asking you to push it forward when it talks about having uneducated men and women handling grenade launchers. Yes, I'm going to say that one more time, because again, that's not my opinion. I actually read that. That's not my opinion. That is a Supreme Court decision. That's not my opinion. It's written down. Now, but when we're talking about this, we're going to talk about the initial 3 officers. The killing of Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., the police were called to do what is called a wellness check, or perform what is called a wellness check. Now, before I get into that, I'll give you again, I'm going to continue this backstory. Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., former Marine, had heart issues. He lived by himself, and he had this thing called a life alert. Now, most of us laughed about that because the woman that, oh, I've fallen and I can't get up, and this is your little pendant, and they push the pendant, and people come give them help. That's how it was supposed to work. I'm going to say that one more time. The police officers are in service to the public. The life alert was given to a man who lived by himself who had medical issues. The life alert calls people to bring him help. That's not what happened with Kenneth. They knock on his door at 5:22 a.m. Now, here's the beautiful part of it. Because most of us don't know what's supposed to take place in a wellness check. Now, at the time of the call, most people don't think about what's follow after the authorities check on the individuals. I'll stop right there because, again, I'm reading department policy from, what is this? The White Plains, New York Police Department. At the time of the call, most people don't think about what's to follow after the authorities check on the individuals. They had 3 officers show up. They did not give all 3 officers' names, yet I have 2 of the 3. One was Officer Anthony Carelli, Carelli. Officer Stephen Hart. In the movie, they replaced those names with Jackson and Rossi. Also, there were 2 other sergeants there. They never kind of informed you who was who, but one of the sergeants was Sergeant Futrell, and the other one was Sergeant Steve Demchuk. Demchuk. Now, here's where it's going to get murky, because it's going to sound as if, you know what? How about this? I'll just go ahead and give it to you. You take it however you take it, because that's what it is at this point. I don't need to explain to you what you're hearing. You're actually listening to it. So here we go. These 3 officers knocked on Kenneth Chamberlain Sr.'s door. 5:22 a.m. Most of us at 5:22 a.m., we are in a dead sleep. His life alert then calls him. In the movie, it shows he's calling the life alert, yet he called them. Now, well, they called him to notify him the police are there. He informs the police he did not mean to turn on the alarm. There was no medical emergency. Now, police were not satisfied. Steve Hart, Sergeant Futrell, Steve Demchuk, Anthony Carelli were not satisfied. Informing a wellness check. If the police go to the location and find that the person is in good health and it was only a miscommunication where you are unable to get a hold of him or her, they will notify you to let you know. If the police go to the location and find that the person is in good health, these officers knocked on the door. Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. responded. He also answered the phone. He informed the life alert lady that it was an inadvertent alarm. He did not have any medical issues. These officers had an opportunity where one officer was relieved of duty because he spoke to the sergeant and told the sergeant, "We are not following department policy." He was relieved of duty because he told the sergeant they were no longer following department policy. I'm going to get to that. But these officers did not leave after making contact, getting verbal communication, and being communicated to by the life alert young lady. Now, seems easy enough because, things happen. We want to make sure. I get it. So they took it a step farther. They began knocking, beating, and screaming. Knocking on the door, beating on the door, and screaming at a person who had mental and medical issues. Now, prior to the call in by the police officers, they didn't really have any known, but they were communicated with by Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. A couple of neighbors came out. These neighbors was informing the officers that were present of Kenneth's medical issues. Now, that's not here, nor were those in the police report. Here's the great part about this, because I constantly tell people, if you are in a conveyance, in a car, in a vehicle, whatever, and you're riding around, and you do not if you do not have a dash cam, I've done multiple videos on it, you are an idiot. And I mean that at the highest of anything. If you do not have a dash cam at this point, you are an idiot. Because even as an example, someone such as Tyler Perry, who's done multiple movies with the DeKalb County Police Department, it did not shield him from having a physical altercation with the DeKalb County police officer. Oh, we didn't know about that. That was a secret. We didn't know about Chris Carter having someone enter into his home, having to come outside because he didn't want to be shot by police officers or mistaken as the intruder that he called about. He cut on every light in his house and he went outside and waited for the police. It didn't stop Ving Rhames from being snatched up at his house that he had lived in for 10 years because the police, who didn't know the big Pulp Fiction star, the big Mission Impossible star, lived in the house that he had been in for 10 years. It didn't stop that, but he also did not have cameras on the outside of his home. So when you're interacting with these and you're calling or these people are being called, or even if something as simple as an inadvertent stop, because what we forget is the separation of police and state. These police officers are human beings. Generally, when we're talking about a police officer, we're talking about someone who we say, oh, well, he was bullied in high school, or she was bullied in school, or nobody respected her. So these are the people with the mentality that is low, less than a 104 IQ, that are becoming police officers. And we're expecting them to have above average intelligence, such as Officer Kelvin Dingle, saying they're professional. These professionals went to Kenneth Chamberlain's home, beat on his door at 5:22 a.m., was told and had contact that this man had issues. They left out of their reports at the profanity-laced interactions that they had with the tenants who was talking to them about this man. They left out their reports, the profanity-laced interactions they had with this man. They did not turn on their body cams except for when they were tasing this man. Again, things I'm going to get to. Or we're talking about the context that we have where you have an hour-long interaction, 20 seconds of video. We have this thing called stock language, which doesn't allow for accuracy. It allows for vagueness. But these are the people that we're told to trust because they're supposed to be in service to the public. They then asked Kenneth, who had repeated to them what he had just said, I am fine, there was no emergency, I don't need your help, I didn't call you. They asked for his ID, and he called 911 from another phone. So now, the police officers who are outside, Stephen Hart, Anthony Corelli, Sergeant Futrell, and Steve Demchuk. They're on the phone. They have his ID. They are talking to him. They're communicating with him. Yet it is still not enough. During the call, their supervisor calls them because their their dispatch contacts them and informs them that Kenneth Chamberlain has a medical condition, which is a heart issue, as well as a mental issue, which is exacerbated by yelling and beating on the door. They know what antagonizes this man. They know what elevates this man's condition. Yet, police department policy requires that they just make contact, that he is in good health. Their report stated that he was belligerent with them. They never mentioned the fact that they were antagonizing the citizen they were coming to check on to see if he was okay. They were told that he had an issue. They exacerbated that issue by banging and yelling. They were only supposed to come and make contact to make sure he was well. He gave them an ID. He informed them that he was okay. They were also contacted by their supervisors and dispatch and told to cancel the call. Say that one more time. They were told to cancel the call. Why? Because all they were supposed to do was go and make contact and make sure this man is okay. That's not what they did. They continued even after getting his ID, even after being told that there was no call, even after being told to contact and disengage. There was one more instruction. If you don't feel that this is an okay situation, just sit there. Don't do anything. Just sit. Get paid for sitting on your ass. That was not good enough for them. Now, after constant interaction, after constant kicking on the door, after constantly beating on the door, Chamberlain then spoke with his sister. His sister calls him. He answers the phone. Police are still yelling and beating on his door. She told him she was going to send her daughter, his niece, to his house. Chamberlain's response was, do not send her here, because you know how the police officers do people. Her question was, what exactly do you mean? His response, Kenneth Chamberlain's response, they will hurt her. Why would he think that the police would hurt his niece? These are the good guys. These are the guys that are sworn that they're going to protect and serve the public. These guys are only doing a wellness check. They're checking to make sure he is okay and alive. That's it. These are the same people that are beating on his door. These are the same people that lied in their report. These are the same people that didn't record any of their interaction. These are the same people that murdered him. Police report stated that Chamberlain repeatedly attacked officers, yet Chamberlain's autopsy showed that his hands was at his side when he was shot through the arm into the chest. I'm going to repeat that one more time. Because I want you to do me a favor. I want you to stand up real quick. Or actually, just put your arms at your side. Put it in any position you would like that you would feel will be an attack position. And line your bicep up. And see where it lines up with your chest. And then I want you to tell me, is that an attack position? Or is that a lie in the police report? Because here's the thing. These three police officers were informed that this man had mental health issues. They were informed that he was a military veteran. They was given his ID. They were told to cancel the call. They continued to beat and yell at him, at others in the building, and then they lied about calling him the N-word multiple times. Now, I know what it sounds like. I know, because even saying this, it sounds like speculation. Oh, he's making it up. It's just a movie. It's not real. They exaggerate things in the movies. Well, let me give you a little bit of context. Because for me, understanding that I did a report, I think it was 17 minutes long, about I think it was 4 police officers in Arizona. I'll go back and I'll verify that. But I think it was 4 police officers in Arizona. One of them's dead now. That had been involved in several, more than one, multiple shootings in Arizona. Multiple times they had shot someone doing a wellness check. Multiple times these officers had been found to have been lying about being attacked and about finding a weapon. And I can go into Officer Anthony Corelli's background as a police officer. Sure, many of you remember the conversation that I had in the Supreme Conversation where I talked about the itchy times for police officers. Is year 1 through 5, and then 9 through, I believe it was 15. So year 6, 7, and 8, they're I guess figuring out, probably going through their first or second divorce. Well, Anthony Corelli had multiple excessive charges, excessive force charges, excessive accusations of being racist. Twice he was caught on film being racist. So when his report did not contain the fact that he was using the N-word multiple times, that kind of got everybody's attention because he didn't have his body camera on. His report didn't contain it at all. Neither did Steve Hart's, neither did Sergeant Futrell or Steve Demuse. None of these reports contain any of the interactions with the apartment dwellers or the interaction that they were having that was derogatory with Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. In fact, all of these reports were identical. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I can sit down and I can give you my views on this movie. 3 other people can sit down, watch the exact same movie, and we can all have different perspectives. So the fact that 4 separate officers had the exact same police report sounds like BS to me. The fact that 4 officers who were wearing body cameras, all of them malfunctioned when they showed up to his home, sounds kind of suspect to me. Steve Hart also repeatedly called Chamberlain the N-word. Steve Hart had multiple accusations and complaints filed against him for excessive force. He died in a fiery car crash, which I actually thought was kind of interesting that they used the word fiery car crash in January 2015, because he actually remained on the job after they found out that he lied for 9 months after this incident. The incident happened November 19th, 2011. He was not relieved of his job until July 2012. All they were supposed to do was go and make sure that Mr. Chamberlain was okay and there was no emergency. Mr. Chamberlain made vocal contact. He gave them his ID. He called 911. The police dispatcher told these gentlemen to leave him alone. Cancel the call. He's okay. Yet these officers took it upon themselves to bang on this man's door, exacerbate his mental condition. They yelled constantly. They lied in their report. They yelled at those that were in the apartment. They threatened anyone that was recording their actions. Yep, but they're the good guys. We're supposed to trust these people. Because this also goes back to another officer in Chicago, Officer Muhammad. He shot a 16-year-old autistic boy. He stated that this young man ran up to his car and was threatening him 6 o'clock in the morning. He shot this young man twice. That's what the police report said. Yet, thanks to Vivid Home Security, its ability to not only record video that is high quality in dim light, it recorded audio that was crystal clear. And it showed Officer Muhammad driving down the street. He then stopped his cruiser. 16-year-old young man was literally skipping down the street when Officer Muhammad called him over. The young man stopped. He acknowledged that he had been called. He took 2 steps towards Officer Muhammad, and Officer Muhammad shot at him twice, hitting him once. But then he lied in his report because he didn't know there was a video of it. Sergeant Futrell, Officer Stephen Demchuk, Officer Stephen Hart, and Officer Anthony Corelli did not have their body cams running. All of them had identical police reports. They lied in their police reports because they didn't know that the life alert system, while it wasn't recording video, it recorded the entire interaction. It recorded every cuss word. It recorded every beat on the door. It recorded when they kicked open the door and Chamberlain was trying to keep them out. It recorded Chamberlain, who had a heart condition, being tased twice. It recorded Chamberlain being shot in the chest at close range with a shotgun that contained beanbags. It recorded the 2 shots that Chamberlain took in the chest, one through his arm, twice. They didn't know those recordings existed. Most people doesn't understand a lot of the context of why Facebook and Instagram and all these other little cloud-based recording options are there. Why they're asking for not only password verifications to view them, or even instantly going live. It's not for the people. It's because police officers have commonly gone into phones illegally, gone on to people's social media and deleted these videos. These are mechanisms that allow for you to have a recording of these police interactions that the police cannot delete. Because just like the young man who was shot in South Georgia, The district attorney constantly stated, oh, well, several police officers made contact with the vehicle, which was why they had to shoot him. They fought tooth and nail for the video and audio to be released. They didn't know that someone down the street who had almost a perfect angle on the home of this young man had recorded the entire incident. Where in fact, not only did the district attorney misspeak, the police officers lied in their reports. He didn't drive his car at them. They ran towards him and reached and grabbed the car and then shot at him. Because if there was no recording, these officers to this day would not be put into the circumstances that they are right now. I spoke with this police officer once before, and it was actually a young man who was arresting me. And he told me one of the most stressful times in his life was when he was being sued because he was a supervisor, and they actually executed a warrant on the wrong house. He said it was one of the most stressful times in his life because he couldn't use his union rep. He had to hire an attorney. He couldn't work any overtime. He couldn't do any of the other things that allowed him to make these large salaries. He was on restrictive duty. And understanding stress, understanding strain, especially when now you're living paycheck to paycheck. You're living like the people that you attack. You're living in the world that you're inflicting on others. And Tatiana Jefferson. Pretty sure most of you remember her. I'm probably mispronouncing her name. She was the woman that was shot right next to her grandson in Fort Worth, Texas. Her neighbor noticed that her doors, front and back, were open. People had seemingly left the house, at least had been gone for at least an hour. He hadn't seen any movement. He just wanted to make sure that she was okay because she too lived by herself. Well, on this wellness check, police officers didn't drive up to her home. They parked down the street. They didn't turn on their sirens. They parked down the street. They treated it not as a wellness check. Officer, go to the front, go to the back. One officer sees movement, yell freeze, and immediately starts to shoot, killing Miss Jefferson. In the context of this, watching his body cam footage, from the time yelling freeze and firing at a woman through the window of her own home was less than 0.25 seconds. So that, in essence, while he was yelling freeze, he was squeezing the trigger. Because he was checking to make sure she was okay. Today, the only lesson I'm giving you is whether you like it or don't like it, you need to be recording the interactions that are going on around you. You need to have accessibility to things that allow you to be safe. And the problem is you're protecting yourself from those that are supposed to be. You're protecting yourself from those who have sworn to protect you. I'm going to say that one more time. You are protecting yourself from those that are sworn to protect you. Because one of the things that was constantly told to me was, if you give a child a handgun, you don't know what's going to happen, but you're going to end up on the news. And at some point, we need to make note that calling a police officer should not be the first thing you do, because they are weaponizing fear. They are being trained like attack dogs. There was no reason for them to walk up and immediately have his gun out at Miss Jefferson's home when they were called to check and see if she was okay. There was no reason for them to continue beating on Kenneth Chamberlain Sr.'s door after being told he was okay, after being given his ID, after being alerted by 911 that he was all right, after being told by their people to cancel the call because they were checking just to see if he was okay. There was no call, no right or reason for these Arizona officers to murder these people with mental issues that are documented mental issues that have been called out there. And there are certain reasons why I actually did a story, I want to say about a couple months ago, where police are no longer in certain areas allowed to go on a wellness check. And they're upset about that. They're upset they cannot go on a wellness call. Yet, who's actually getting murdered more? Those with mental illnesses. While they should have the professionalism that Officer Kevin Dingle speaks about, they should have it. They don't exercise it. Just like most people, I tell you, oh, well, I know my rights. They don't exercise them. When we're talking about these contexts of these issues, understand, I don't live in the world of should. I live in the actual world of reality and what's actually going on. We have poorly trained police officers that are executing the plan perfectly. We have poorly trained police officers that are executing the plan of our system perfectly. Until we address the actual issue, we're going to continue this problem. So until that problem is properly addressed, the responsibility lies with us on focusing on creating the change. Because I actually have a friend, I actually thought it was kind of crazy. Like, damn, you got cameras all over your house. Like, this is a damn compound. But then when you think about it, like, yeah, so do I. Yeah, I got cameras everywhere. Everywhere I lay my head, there's camera. There are cameras. Because at the end of the day, is it an inconvenience to certain? Absolutely. I don't like them. However, I understand why it's a necessity. It's no longer a luxury. You look at things such as the Ring doorbell. You now look at avenues of those who have Amazon. You can now use Blink. Blink is one of my favorites. Why? Because it's not going to say it's just as good, but it's good. Those that want to use the home security, Vivid, that's my recommendation all day. But I want you to understand, in your car, I gave you 3 options, good, better, and best. Get one. Because it's no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. Because I can't keep complaining about how bad these people are or how poorly trained these people are, and I'm not doing anything about it. Because then my complaining is in vain. That means I don't even want the change. Because at some point, as they say, if you knew better, you do better. You know better now. Because I literally can go through hundreds of cases where the mentally ill have been killed by police officers. I can go through hundreds of cases, if not thousands, in the past 5 years where video has contradicted the actions or the reports of these officers. These are things that I constantly talk about: getting scene reports, getting affidavits, making them prove their cases against you. But again, a lot of people think the fight is too much. That's too much. I don't want to go through that. Then you can't complain about what's happening because you're not going against it. Because you're either accepting it or you're not. If you're not accepting it, you're fighting. And if you're not fighting, then there's no need in complaining about it because you're encouraging it. Now, I'm going to close with this today because at the end of the day, this is about the one thing that, you know what? I often bring up my friend in Atlanta who's a police officer. Yes, I'm going to repeat that. I often bring up the story that I had with a friend of mine in Atlanta that is a police officer. Now, the conversation was, if you understand the things I'm saying are not police bashing, if you understand the things that I'm saying are the right things to do, why do you get upset when you're held accountable for them? His response was, because we're being punished for doing what we are trained to do. Until we do something about that training, until we bring awareness to that training, until we understand our light, understand how powerful we are, they're going to continue doing the same thing. And if I continue doing the same thing, I'm going to continue getting the same result. So if I don't make a change, there's no reason for them to change.